Good morning, Croatian Library Association. My name is Amy Malm. I am the Dean of the University Library Archives and Museum, and I'm very happy to be with you this morning. Thank you to the hosts for inviting me to participate, and I hope the rest of your panels are engaging and that you have a lovely rest of your day. I apologize as well that I'm not able to join you in person today or to be available during your Q&A session later, but I will provide you with my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me with any feedback, comments, or questions, and I will be happy to engage with you in this manner. You can find my email address at the bottom of this slide. It is my name, amy.malm at gallaudet.edu. So today's topic that I'm going to be discussing with you, I titled Resources and Access in the Academic Library. Our agenda today, although it looks long, really is uh, not quite as extensive. Um, we'll begin with introduction to the Gallaudet University. Then I'll move into helping you to explore the Gallaudet Promise, our bilingual mission, and how these two items drive our library services overall. Third, we will talk about and have an overview of our academic resources that we have available here at the university. Next, we'll discuss specifically accessibility and how that intersects with the bilingual mission here at Gallaudet. Next, we will discuss specific topics related to access for our deafblind patrons, and wrapping up, talking about a general sense of belonging for all at the library. Just to provide you a little context about our library, Gallaudet University Library currently is 106,000 square foot library space. However, we have currently moved out of that space into a temporary location on campus so that we can provide the space and prepare for a new library building. We're currently in a multi-year planning and development process for constructing a brand new library. Having said that, we started just as COVID reared its head back in 2020, late 2019. Of course, everything was halted for the last couple of years until recently this spring. We've picked up this project again and have begun the planning and schematic design phases. We are currently, our collection is about 120,000 items. That's divided both into our general academic collection, including monographs, volumes, periodicals, microfiche, media of various and sundry formats. And then we also have our world-renowned deaf collection. We have approximately 30,000 items on the library side of our deaf collection. And this does not include the archival content that we have that is also available with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of items there for primary source documents, artifacts, and objects. Within the library, we have 79, databases with access to over 208,000 journals via those databases. Another impact of COVID for us has been the rapid expansion of our electronic resources, making sure that our library is accessible both on campus and off campus in the event or the need arises for remote learning at any time in the future as well. Our staff, we currently have 14 members, including myself. 12 of our staff members are deaf or hard of hearing, which leaves me and one other of my staff members. However, 13 out of 14 of my staff members are fluent in ASL, including myself. We do serve a population of about 1,100 students. That includes graduate, undergraduate, and PhD candidates here and abroad. Then we also have a collaboration that we serve and support the CLARE Center, which is our infant to toddler and then our kindergarten through 12th grade schools here on our campus. And we also serve all of our faculty, staff, and alumni. And then we have the honor to be able to host visiting scholars and researchers from around the world. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Gallaudet Promise, a little bit about the bilingual mission, and how these two things intersect with our library services that we provide here. So what is the Gallaudet Promise? Well, in 2019, 2020, our president was looking at framing the promise of Gallaudet to our community and to the deaf community worldwide. And she summarized that in this infographic here. I'll give you just a second to take a look at. What you'll notice is that there are three key parts to this. On the far left-hand side, you have the blue grand challenges. These are overarching challenges that are often faced by the deaf community and individuals here at the Gallaudet University. At the bottom in yellow, you will see the three imperatives. You can kind of think of those as our base values, wanting to make sure that we support learning and education through a bilingual mission. For us, bilingual means American Sign Language, often referred to as ASL, and then read and written English. We do support other multi-languages on campus as well. We also have the imperative or the value of belonging and equity, inclusiveness in our community, and then the last value of innovation for impact. Where those things come in for the library, we'll be discussing each of those as we go through this presentation. And when you combine those five imperatives and they intersect with our three values, the outcome are the three green priorities or objectives. And that is, providing excellence in academic learning across the lifespan, the ability to create knowledge and provide knowledge discovery. And then lastly, to create signing ecosystems to support career success for our students overall. So we'll talk about these and how they intersect with our services too. First, let's talk a little bit about our collection. The hyperlinks that are included on these slides are the yellow text. I will also be sharing those later with you as well in case the links don't work from the video. The first is our general library website. From there, you can launch into numerous resources, our catalog, the library research guides, and then also tiptoe off into other areas like our Gallaudet archives as well. Within the Gallaudet Library, we have a robust deaf collection, and that includes deaf print periodicals that we manage and preserve here. We have a large collection of deaf biographies and vertical files in paper format, which are also being transitioned into digital format eventually. And then we have two large sections that we provide resources and access. The first is our deaf FAQ research guides. The topics in this discussion are everything related to deafness, deaf culture, language, sign language. So a lot of different topics are hosted under the deaf frequently asked questions section. And then we have the deaf research guides, and this turns to a more academic side of the research guides that we provide, looking at various academic topics related to everything from language acquisition, deaf education, and neuroscience research, anything related to to deafness or the deaf community. And finally, also connected with the university library is the university archives. Here we host not only content related to Gallaudet University, but we also are a curator, collector of content from around the world from various organizations, families, deaf individuals, including deaf artists who have um, given or donated or have had purchased their artwork or their content to be included in our archives collection. It is a huge and vast collection of information, um, everything from, letters and newsletters to artifacts and objects and deaf artwork as well. So I would highly recommend taking a moment of looking and exploring that website if you haven't ever had a chance. Well, as one of our imperatives is the bilingual mission. And so how does that work into the library? Generally we know that the library is made up of a lot of print, a lot of text. And English is often not first language and or is a lot of barriers have existed for our students coming out of mainstreamed or public education and accessing the English language in general. And so when we look at the bilingual message in the library, we look at, okay, how do we make the library a space that is accessible both in an ASL vibrant way and also through text of written English language. One of the things that one of the faculty members here on campus has been successfully producing for a number of years now is the Deaf Studies Digital Journal. This is a peer-reviewed, science-centric academic journal. And what this means is instead of it coming out to you in a print-bound format that you get in the mail, you can digitally look at this online. And then the content that is there, when presented, is all presented in American Sign Language for the most part. It is really a spectacular thing to take a look at, and it is something that we as librarians have been struggling to figure out, how do we create more of this type of content? And part of that is how do you collect it? How do you curate? How do you preserve it? How do you make sure that the downloads of that are efficient? So we're talking about digital institutional repositories, and the cloud-based environment and technology is making this idea or this dream more and more possible. And it is still a work in progress for us, but it is a topic of great discussion that we're working on internally. The other thing that we talk about in the bilingual mission is that making sure that all of our content that we create from the library, announcements, events, tutorials, information literacy modules, all of our research guides, anything that's new from this point forward, our charge is to make sure that it is presented in a bilingual manner. So that it is presented in sign language in some shape. And then there's also the written or the text format that accompanies any of those types of information. Also making sure that it is deafblind accessible, making sure that information that is created follows acceptable practices, like making sure that there are headings for the sections, making sure that there's alternate text available for graphics and pictures, making sure that it is all of the text has gone through an OCR process. And then also that the formats itself are downloadable or viewable on a multiple sets of different types of devices. So we've got a lot of work there. We've got a lot of stuff that has been created in the past that eventually we will slowly go back and transform to meet the standards of our bilingual framework. And then any new content going forward will have to meet our bilingual mission for the university. Of course, that also includes a lot of technical work. We're working in conjunction with our chief bilingual officer and her office for video production, um, editing, and then including things like even within the video, making sure that it's deafblind accessible, making sure that there is captioning available, and it's professional captioning, not just the automatic captioning that can be provided by some video platforms. And then lastly, making sure that there's a transcript available so that if our deafblind patrons are Braille readers, they can download that text and have it produced for them over the Braille display. So that text is also um, tactilely available to them through their Braillers. Um, Again, for me, I'm in staffing of my library, making sure that we make sure that we have deaf professionals that are filling the positions within our library and having that ASL vibrancy for the direct interaction with our patrons. Lastly, I would talk a little bit about something that is a dream in the making for us, and that is developing, finding ways to capitalize on artificial intelligence and language recognition software in ASL. There was a lot that's going on here at Gallaudet in these two spheres, and our goal is at some point to be able to marry that with a library catalog interface, so that our patrons could approach a kiosk or a screen and actually be able to ask or inquire or search via ASL and have that interface then produce results in their search engine related to the request made in ASL. It's one of those things that is a long range goal, and it is something that we are actively talking about and discussing and figuring how we can implement at some point in our future. Related specifically to deafblind or low vision access, in our library, what we have done is we've set up a couple of different workstations. Not all deafblind individuals are Braille readers. Some of them are low vision that need text magnification and other text reading support. Back in the days, it was those large screen TVs that they had to put their book under the plate glass that would then magnify it. There weren't a lot of options. It was very large. It consumed a lot of floor space. And it wasn't friendly. It wasn't at all portable. And so in the past year, we have found and have put into place what are called Pearl cameras. And that is a small device over here in the top picture that is actually a portable camera. You can connect it via USB, and as long as you have supportive text software like Zoom Text or JAWS, um, that any computer can be turned into a text magnification system whereby students can read textbooks or articles or print journals directly on their own device. And as you can see, it's a very small device, it's portable, and as long as a person has the software on their computer, they can even borrow the cameras for on-campus residents and take them back to the dorms to use. We've also been awarded money to be able to set up a Braille a Braille workstation. And this is where anyone from the community that wants to create something or produce something in Braille can come down to the library. We have a couple of Braille displays, and then we have a large Braille print embosser that is this large white machine down at the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. And so anyone can come in and sit down and take their notes from a class, upload them into the computer, and then the computer will then translate that and print it out in Braille for our patrons' use. Our student engagement department is also going to be using this for their new requirements of making sure that all posters and events also have a Braille counterpart that can be posted with any announcements around campus. So we're really excited about the strides forward in these services for our deafblind and low vision patrons here. Lastly, just inclusive excellence. As we are moving towards a university library, a new library, envisioning, how do we create a visually uh, accessible environment? How do we make sure that in all ways the bilingual mission is incorporated into our plans, is incorporated into building design, making sure that there's lines of sight, that there aren't barriers for wayfinding for our deafblind patrons as they are navigating the building. We're also looking at like I mentioned before, the digital institutional repository for curation, access, and preservation of scholarly works in ASL. Again, satisfying that knowledge creation discovery, which is part of our Gallaudet promise. This is also a work in progress for us right now. We have a team that's task force working toward that end. And then also within the library, making sure that wayfinding is improved. One of the things that we've learned from our old building is that it was not very accessible, and it definitely was not easy to navigate for our deafblind patrons. So we're working with some special groups for wayfinding and digital kiosks and signage throughout the library so people can be greeted in ASL. The announcements can be uh, scrolling in ASL instead of always having to rely on text. And then improving wayfinding for our deafblind patrons. The use of color, the use of texture, and arrangement of spaces and furniture, keeping in mind their spatial awareness and safety. So, to wrap up, this is where we're at Gallaudet. These are the ways that we're addressing accessibility and including, the resources that we have and the future that we're headed toward as a ASL vibrant, inclusive library for the future. So again, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your presentation and your panel. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. I'd be happy to interact with you. And thank you again to our hosts. And at that, I will close. Thank you very much.